Hi, I'm Ted Santos, and I'm back again. And today I'd like to speak with you about leadership. And I'd like to speak with you not just leadership in general. I'd like today to focus on the board of directors. And a board of directors can be extremely important to an organization, not just publicly traded companies that are required by law and regulatory agencies to have a board of directors. Even publicly, small privately held companies can benefit from having a board. In the large companies, the board of directors is responsible for hiring the CEO and then overseeing corporate governance. They help develop strategy, and they are ultimately there to protect the shareholders' interest. In other words, they're there to protect the shareholders' financial investment into the company to ensure that the shareholders get a great return and the correct CEO is in there to do a good job of moving the company forward in a profitable way. So within a board, the leadership of the board is generally the chairman of the board. In some cases, the chairman and the CEO are the same person. In that case, you would have what they call a lead director. And it's critical that you do have someone who is ultimately responsible for the board and leading the board. And I say that because a really well organized board of directors is going to have someone with a finance background, a legal background, marketing, operations, someone with industry experience for the company. You'll have someone with a high technology background, and you may even have someone from the government on the board. And when you bring a body of people together, it could be 5 people, it could be up to 15 or slightly more people, with those different backgrounds and slightly different age groups. You may have some retired CEOs, you may have some existing CEOs and other executives. It's very easy to get points of views that conflict with one another. So this is where leadership from your chairman, if it's a separate position, becomes absolutely essential. If not, what you could end up with is a very quiet, dysfunctional board, or very loud, obvious, dysfunctional board. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. And from a sort of obvious viewpoint, people talk about your chairman of the board has to be a really strong, well-seasoned, has to command the respect of the other board members. So a lot of times it's quite easy to find a chairman who is a former CEO of a significant company. And he can serve as a mentor to the CEO of the company. And the other board members, whether their background is finance, legal, marketing, they also can serve as mentors to the other top leaders, executives in the organization. That's a very well put together board and very functional. However, when it comes time to develop strategy, to develop to manage governance issues, it is easy to get questions or perspectives from the members of the board that conflict. And here's where leadership from the chairman plays a significant role. Some boards don't know how to handle that. And so what you end up with, will be board members who just want to get along. So in the worst case, there's the rubber stamp. Whatever the CEO says, we go along with it. He's a good guy and we trust him, or a good woman and we trust her. On the opposite end, it could look like Ross Perot when he was on the board of General Motors. And Ross Perot contributed a perspective, some concerns that he had about what GM was doing and what it could have done. The other board members were not so excited about what he had, so he was ignored. And Ross Perot made it a little worse by going to the media and saying the board was dysfunctional, and eventually the board got rid of him, paid him to go away, which is unfortunate, as we see GM later found itself in trouble. And Perot has said that a lot of the things that he talked about would have addressed those issues and they could have avoided the danger they got themselves into. So how do you manage, as a chairman, a board seems obvious. If you're a strong chairman, the buck stops with me, you manage the conversations, except generally what's looked for is a chairman who has great industry experience. He can read, he has strong acumen with financial reports. He has operations experience. He's a good leader. Except a lot of people don't look for a chairman who can manage the human paradigm or the human dynamics that happen on a board. And I'm not talking about necessarily being a psychologist. I'm talking about when you put two or more people together, what you end up with at some point is, I'm right, you're wrong. Or, I don't want to be dominated by you, so I'll figure out a way to dominate you or avoid being dominated, which could look like just silence. I won't say anything. People will invalidate other board members. And this is not malicious behavior. It's so much part of our paradigm that we don't see it. In fact, the way we deal with it is to say, well, he's only human and there's nothing we can do about it. Which is unfortunate, because then that puts us to being a victim of the human paradigm, and we're kind of helpless and can't do anything about it. So what do? We create a board of directors where we only bring people on who are like us, think like us, and we know we can get along with. And that is a great formula for groupthink, and no one asks the tough questions, and you find yourselves in a challenging situation, perhaps like Enron and WorldCom. So if you're going to be the chairman, while everyone looks at you as the top of the food chain, it's really in your best interest as a chairman, even as a CEO, even as a manager, to develop the kinds of skills that allow you to have some expertise in the human paradigm so you can manage the conversations that are going to happen when someone wants to be right, when someone wants to dominate. Otherwise, there's nothing to do about it except to ask everyone to stop and sort of park the conversation and not deal with it. A great board of directors can have a healthy discourse, strong disagreement, and be able to manage itself and navigate through these tough conversations without having only the one gear of the human paradigm where you invalidate one another so that you can be right and make the other wrong, or you get these strong, what we call personalities who want to dominate, or people who don't want to be dominated and they just go into silence. How does a chairman navigate that? Do you have the expertise and the training to effectively manage that so you can actually maximize the intellectual capital that you have on your board of directors? So I'd like to know how you and your board deal with that. If you'd like to get an assessment of whether your board has a quiet dysfunction or a pretty obvious one, I'd love to be brought in to talk to you about that and give you an assessment of that. You can reach me on my email, which is, you'll see tsantos@turnaroundip.com. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And I'd love to talk to you about the solutions for that. I'd prefer to do that in another video. Until then, I look forward to hearing your comments and how you deal with the human element of your board. And until then, I say thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.